Well, who hasn't played GTA, or at least heard of it? It's literally everywhere. But did you know the chaos you love, the wild chases, the mayhem, the cops completely losing control, none of it was planned? In the beginning, Grand Theft Auto didn't begin as a masterpiece. It began as a mistake. And that mistake didn't just shape a game, it changed how people thought about games themselves. But before we understand how Grand Theft Auto came to exist, we need to go back to a much quieter beginning. In the early 1990s, a small studio in Dundee, Scotland called DMA Design was riding high on the success of Lemmings. On the back of that hit, publisher BMG Interactive approached them with a very different request of a fast, top-down car game for PC and the new PlayStation. Inside the studio, the project was known as Race and Chase. It was designed as a controlled driving game set in a scrolling city, where players could be police, criminals, or ordinary motorists. Streets followed strict rules, AI traffic obeyed lanes and signals, and even police cars chased carefully, braking and steering instead of smashing through obstacles. It all looked solid and professional, but early playtests told a different story. Races felt safe, chases felt predictable, and nothing surprised the player or created real tension. So if everything was working exactly as designed, why did the game feel so empty? And what changed inside the code that suddenly made everyone in the office stop and pay attention? The first response was subtle. The programmers began adjusting how police cars followed the player. The goal was to make the cops a little more aggressive so chases felt tense instead of sleepy. Then small changes were made to pathfinding and collision logic, and none of it was meant to break the rules of the world. But those quiet edits planted something unexpected, a flaw in how the police AI understood pursuit, and that flaw was about to change everything. However, that thing did not arrive with flashing lights. It crept in quietly, buried inside small adjustments meant to improve the game. As Race and Chase continued to take shape, DMA's programmers refined how police cars pursued the player. Everything was improved, and even aggression values were raised to make chases feel less dull. Then something slipped. In certain situations, the police AI stopped behaving like traffic and started behaving like a weapon. Instead of avoiding crashes, cars aimed directly at the player, ramming at full speed and triggering violent chain reaction pileups. This was not a bold design choice. It was a technical failure where the rule to catch the player overpowered the rule to drive safely. From a programmer's perspective, this was a clear failure. Cars were meant to look believable, not reckless. But when the team loaded the new build and pressed play, something strange happened. The testers weren't complaining, they were laughing. So what exactly had gone wrong, and why did it suddenly feel so right? Because the chaos felt incredible. Chases that once felt controlled suddenly felt dangerous. 1 second you were cutting through traffic, the next you were smashed sideways into a wall by a police car that refused to back off. Even players talked about what happened instead of how it worked. Basically, none of it had been planned, yet it was the most alive the game had ever felt. Soon the team realized the bug had solved their biggest problem. But if the most exciting part of your game is being hunted, what does that say about the original idea where you are supposed to be the good guy? Well, inside DMA, priorities shifted. Compared to the raw energy of those broken chases, playing as a careful cop or law-abiding driver felt flat. Instead of removing the bug, the team leaned into it. For this, physics was loosened and police aggression was pushed further. The AI was encouraged to cut off, ram, and overwhelm. So what started as a mistake became the heart of the experience. Not enforcing the law, but surviving it. And just like that, the game stopped being about racing. It became about running. As the game stopped being about enforcing the law, everything else followed naturally. The thrill was no longer speed or precision. So Race and Chase shifted from a balanced cops and robbers idea into something far more one-sided where the player was meant to run. They rebuilt the missions around theft, destruction, and escape. The top-down view remained, but freedom inside it expanded. 3 cities took shape, like Liberty City, San Andreas, and Vice City. Each was a stylized world, loosely inspired by real places rather than trying to copy them. Inside them, players could choose missions, fail without punishment, ignore structure entirely, or simply exist inside the city and cause trouble. At that point, the game barely resembled its original pitch. So if it was no longer a racing game and no longer about playing the cop, what exactly was it becoming? But wait here. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit like and subscribe. It really helps us keep digging up game stories. Now back to the turning point, because what the game was becoming finally had a name. Grand Theft Auto. The name fit the experience better than anything in the design documents ever had. There, stealing cars was no longer a mechanic, it was the spine of the game. And violence, freedom, pursuit were the point. This was literally a pivot. However, even with a stronger identity, there was a bigger problem hanging over the project. Who was actually going to approve, publish, and sell a game like this in the late 1990s? Behind the scenes, development was unstable and often close to collapse. The builds were crashing, systems were broken, and publisher BMG Interactive repeatedly questioned whether the project was worth finishing at all. What kept the project alive was one argument, repeated again and again. So DMA chose not to tame the game. They committed to the chaos, leaned into the controversy, and shipped something loud, messy, and unlike anything else players could buy at the time. Once that decision was made, there was no going back. And with that commitment locked in, Grand Theft Auto launched into the world without apologies. In late 1997, the game launched on MS-DOS, Windows, and PlayStation. It was rough, proudly top-down, and technically awkward, but the players didn't care. Nothing else gave them this kind of freedom. Of course, critics immediately noticed the flaws, but they noticed something else too. That no other game offered this much freedom inside a living city, or let chaos spiral so quickly and completely out of control. Most studios would have treated the aggressive police behavior as a mistake and removed it before launch. GTA did the opposite. It leaned into the chaos and made it the point. How far could a single accidental design choice carry a series once it began to grow? The answer showed up fast, and it started with players. They bought the game in huge numbers, spreading stories about wild chases and improvised escapes. Soon, sales climbed past 1 million copies in its first year, then kept going. The success justified sequels and expansions like GTA London 1969, and it gave the studio confidence to push further. Each follow-up carried the same DNA forward. GTA 2 refined the wanted system into clear levels of escalation. GTA 3 exploded the idea into full 3D, turning stars into visible threats with roadblocks, helicopters, and armed units closing in from every direction. From Liberty City to San Andreas to GTA 5, the core loop never really changed. Just cause trouble, attract attention, watch the response escalate, and see if you can survive the consequences. It all traces back to a single defining choice. Do not fix the chaos, build the game around it. Of course, GTA is not everyone's favorite. Some players hate the chaos, the noise, the lack of rules, and yet decades later, GTA remains one of the most played, watched, and argued about franchises in the world. So what is it really tapping into? Why does a series built on disorder feel alive, even as technology, trends, and players keep changing around it? At this point, across every era of GTA, the experience still echoes that first broken prototype. Do something illegal, and the world doesn't politely respond. It pushes back. Because of that pushback, the chaos still feels alive. Every chase, crash, or escape feels earned in the moment, not pre-written. That's why players still share clips decades later. Not because the game told them a story, but because it let one happen. In the end, that early decision did not just shape a franchise, it rewired how open-world games think about freedom, consequence, and fun. So what do you think? Have you ever had a game where a glitch made everything more fun? And should more studios stop fixing the chaos and start listening to it instead? Tell us in the comments. And if you love stories where a single idea grows into something legendary, don't miss our video on Thor 5, Valhalla. Till then, see you in the next one.